and welcome back to the Language Lab, your go-to podcast for mastering new languages from the comfort of your home. I'm Emily, and today we're diving into a topic that's close to the hearts of many students out there: how to learn and speak English at home.
That's right, Emily. Whether you're a student looking to improve your English for school, exams, or just to boost your communication skills, we've got some practical tips, real-life scenarios, and proven methods to help you get started right from your living room.
Absolutely, Michael, and today, we'll not only be sharing these tips, but we'll also bring in some real-life examples of how students have successfully practiced and learned English at home. So, if you're ready, let's dive in.
So, Emily, the first thing we always talk about when it comes to learning a new language is immersion. Now, I know that can sound intimidating, especially if you're at home and not in an English-speaking country, but it's more achievable than most people think.
Exactly. Michael, immersion doesn't necessarily mean you have to be surrounded by native speakers all time. It's about creating an environment where English becomes a natural part of your daily life. For example, let's take a student named Maria from Spain. She was determined to improve her English, but she didn't have anyone around her who spoke the language.
So, what did she do?
Maria started by switching the language settings on all her devices: her phone, computer, even her social media, to English. It forced her to interact with the language regularly. When she watched movies or TV shows, she did so in English with English subtitles. It wasn't just passive listening; she actively engaged by repeating phrases, pausing to understand new words, and even mimicking the accent.
That's such a smart approach. I remember hearing about another student, Ahmed from Egypt, who went a step further. He created a rule for himself: no entertainment unless it's in English. That meant English music, podcasts, YouTube channels, and even video games. It's incredible how much he learned just by making this one change. His vocabulary expanded, and he even started picking up on slang and idiomatic expressions without formally studying them.
That's the power of immersion. It doesn't feel like traditional studying, but it's highly effective. If you're listening and wondering where to start, pick a favorite TV show or a YouTube channel that interests you and make it your daily English practice.
Alright, so now that we've established immersion, let's talk about another critical component: setting realistic goals and practicing consistently. This is where a lot of students struggle, especially when they're learning on their own.
Yes, Michael, it's easy to say, I want to be fluent in English, but that's a huge goal and it can feel overwhelming. Instead, break it down into smaller, manageable tasks. For instance, I know a student named Ravi from India who wanted to improve his English speaking skills. So he set a simple yet powerful goal: speak English for at least 15 minutes every day.
And how did he make sure to stick to that goal?
Ravi made it a part of his routine every morning. He would speak to himself in English while getting ready for the day. He would describe what he was doing: I'm brushing my teeth, I'm making breakfast, and so on. Then he'd practice having imaginary conversations in English about his day, his plans, or even a recent news story he'd read.
That's a great tip. Speaking to yourself in English is a fantastic way to build confidence. There's no pressure, no one listening, and you can practice pronunciation and sentence structure. I remember Sarah, a student from South Korea, who used a similar method. She'd record herself speaking on her phone and then listen back to it. At first, it felt awkward, but over time, she noticed improvements in her fluency and pronunciation.
Exactly. Recording yourself is an excellent way to track your progress. Plus, it gives you the opportunity to hear what you might need to work on. And here's another practical tip: don't forget about speaking out loud when you're reading in English. Whether it's a book, an article, or even your social media feed, read it out loud. It helps with pronunciation and makes the learning process more active.
Right, and it also brings us to the point of consistency. Ravi and Sarah both practiced regularly. It's not about cramming all at once, but rather doing a little bit each day. Even if it's just 10 minutes, the key is to do it consistently. That's what makes the difference over time.
Now, Michael, we can't talk about learning English at home without mentioning the wealth of technology and online resources available today. There's so much out there that can help students practice and improve their English skills.
Definitely, Emily. Let's start with language learning apps like Duolingo, Babbel, or Memrise. These apps are designed to make learning a new language fun and interactive. They offer daily exercises in vocabulary, grammar, and speaking that you can do in short bursts throughout the day.
Yes, and what's great about these apps is that they often use gamification to keep you motivated. For example, Juan, a student from Mexico, used Duolingo as part of his daily routine. He set a goal to complete at least one lesson every day. Over time, he built a streak, and that became a motivating factor to keep going. The competitive element made him look forward to his practice sessions.
That's a great example, and for those who want to practice listening and comprehension, podcasts like this one are an excellent resource. You can listen while commuting, cooking, or exercising. There's a podcast out there for almost any interest, and many of them are designed specifically for English learners.
Exactly. There's a student, Amina, from Morocco, who loved cooking. She found an English language cooking podcast that she listened to while preparing meals. Not only did she improve her English, but she also learned some new recipes. It became a two-in-one learning experience.
Another great tool is online language exchange platforms like Tandem or HelloTalk. These platforms connect you with native English speakers who are learning your language, so you can practice speaking in a real conversational context. It's a fantastic way to meet people from different cultures and practice English at the same time.
Yes, and speaking of real conversational context, let's not forget about social media. Platforms like Instagram, Twitter, and Reddit offer endless opportunities to engage in English. You can follow English-speaking influencers, participate in discussions, and even start a blog or a YouTube channel where you post in English. It's a way to practice writing and speaking while sharing your own interests and ideas.
That's a brilliant idea. Emily, it reminds me of Lee, a student from China, who started an Instagram account where he posted a short video in English every day. He talked about anything from his favorite books to what he learned that day. Over time, he built a small community of followers who encouraged him and even gave him feedback on his English. It was a great way to stay motivated and keep practicing.
Now, let's shift gears and talk about the importance of reading and writing in English. These skills are just as crucial as speaking and listening, and they can be developed with a few simple strategies.
Yes, and one of the best ways to improve your reading skills is to start with something you enjoy. Whether it's novels, articles, blogs, or even comic books, find something that interests you and make it a habit to read a little every day. For example, there's Pedro from Brazil, who loved sports. He started reading English articles about his favorite football teams. It didn't feel like homework because he was genuinely interested in the content.
And when it comes to writing, keeping a daily journal in English can be incredibly helpful. It doesn't have to be anything fancy, just jotting down a few sentences about your day, your thoughts, or even what you learned can make a big difference. Over time, you'll notice improvements in your sentence structure, vocabulary, and overall confidence in writing.
That's a great point, Emily. Another technique is to engage in online forums or communities. Websites like Reddit have countless subreddits dedicated to every topic under the sun. You can join discussions in English, ask questions, and even offer your own insights. It's a great way to practice writing in a more informal, conversational style.
Absolutely, and don't forget about the benefits of reading out loud, which we mentioned earlier. Not only does it help with pronunciation, but it also reinforces your understanding of grammar and sentence structure. The more you read, the more natural English will start to feel. So, Michael, one topic that often comes up when students are learning English is the fear of speaking. It's something that holds a lot of people back, especially when they're practicing at home without the direct support of a teacher or classmates.
That's such an important point, Emily. I've met many students who have a good understanding of English grammar and vocabulary, but freeze up when it comes to speaking. The fear of making mistakes or not being understood can be paralyzing. But the truth is, making mistakes is a crucial part of learning any language.
Exactly. I think it's important to normalize the idea that everyone makes mistakes when they're learning. In fact, I remember a story about a student named Sophia from Italy. She was so nervous about speaking English that she avoided it altogether. But one day, she decided to join an English-speaking club online, where the rule was that everyone had to speak, no matter how many mistakes they made.
That must have been nerve-wracking for her at first.
It was, but something amazing happened. The more she spoke, the more she realized that other people were making mistakes too, and no one judged her for it. In fact, the group was very supportive. They gently correct each other, but the focus was always on encouraging everyone to participate. Over time, Sophia's confidence grew, and she started speaking more fluently.
That's a fantastic example. Speaking in a safe, supportive environment is key. And it doesn't have to be a formal club. You can practice with a friend or family member who also speaks English. Or even better, find a language partner online who is learning your native language. That way, you both understand the struggles of language learning and can support each other.
Yes, and here's another tip: practice thinking in English. Many students first think in their native language and then translate into English, which can cause hesitation and errors. Start small by trying to describe your surroundings or plan your day in English. It's a mental exercise that can help reduce the fear of speaking because you're training your brain to process information directly in English.
That's a powerful technique. Emily, I remember a student named Hassan from Turkey who used to do this while walking to school. He would think about everything he saw in English, like the sky is cloudy or there's a cat on the sidewalk. It became a habit, and eventually, he noticed that when he spoke, the words came to him more naturally.
I love that story, and I think it's also important to remember that speaking doesn't always have to be face-to-face. With technology, you can record voice messages on apps like WhatsApp, or even practice with virtual assistants like Siri or Google Assistant. These tools won't judge you and can be great for practicing pronunciation and fluency.
Yes, and there's also the option of speaking into the mirror. It sounds simple, but it's a way to practice without the pressure of an audience. You can focus on your expressions, body language, and how you deliver your sentences. Plus, it helps build the habit of speaking aloud in English.
That's right, Michael. At the end of the day, the goal is to get comfortable with the sound of your own voice in English. The more you do it, the more confident you'll become.
Another effective strategy for learning English at home is to incorporate the language into your everyday activities. It's all about finding opportunities to use English in your daily routine. Before we wrap up, Emily, we need to talk about one last crucial element: staying motivated. Learning a language, especially at home, can be challenging, and it's easy to lose motivation.
That's so true, Michael. Language learning is a marathon, not a sprint. One of the best ways to stay motivated is to track your progress. For example, Pedro, who we mentioned earlier, kept a journal of his English learning journey. He wrote down new words he learned, noted down his thoughts in English, and set weekly goals. Looking back at how far he'd come was a huge motivator for him.
Tracking progress is key. and you can do it in different ways, whether it's through a journal, a language learning app that tracks your streaks, or even recording yourself speaking periodically to notice improvements. Also, setting short-term goals can make the process less overwhelming. For instance, if you're focusing on vocabulary, challenge yourself to learn 5 new words a day and use them in sentences.
That's a great strategy. Michael, another tip is to reward yourself for reaching milestones. For example, if you've managed to practice English every day for a month, treat yourself to something you enjoy: a favorite meal, a movie night, or even buying a new book in English. These small rewards can keep you motivated to continue your learning journey.
Absolutely, and let's not forget the power of community. Finding a study buddy or joining an online group of English learners can provide both accountability and support. When you see others making progress, it can inspire you to keep going, too. Plus, sharing your challenges and successes with others can make the journey more enjoyable.
And finally, Michael, I think it's important to remind our listeners to be patient with themselves. Language learning is a gradual process, and it's okay to have days where it feels like you're not making much progress. What matters is consistency and the willingness to keep going. Bye for today.